hated the end of this movie. Like, absolutely hated it. I feel that it undercuts what seems like the very important message that's illustrated so well for the whole rest of the movie, which is a big part of why I hated the ending. I was like, it was almost like a different writer and director took over the movie and hadn't been paying attention to what the movie had been about up until that point. And I'm not going to say what the message of the movie is, in my opinion, because I don't want to spoil it. There are a lot of surprises in this movie. It got me too. Partially because I feel like you would never expect a movie to undercut itself like that, but I was genuinely surprised by a lot of the twists. That said, even though I hated the end of the movie, I enjoyed the rest of it so much that I would still recommend that you check it out. Just brace yourself for that ending. And the more that I've thought about the film after seeing it and getting over how bad the ending was, like when I walked out of the theater or screening room, I was like, that was bad. But then I was like, but I really liked other elements of the film. And I've been talking about it to a couple of people I know, and they're like, you seem like you liked this movie. And I was like, you know, for the most part, I did. I just really hated that ending. Now, fascinatingly, this is the second film I've seen this year after James Wan's *Malignant*, which is not only an homage to Giallo Italian horror movies, but specifically 1964's *Blood and Black Lace*. I'm like, this movie keeps coming into my life all of a sudden. And you know what? *Blood and Black Lace*, and some of you actually are familiar with it. Now you can be too, because it's available on iTunes, interestingly enough. And when *Malignant* came out, and I started to look into Giallo Italian horror movies, and this was the coolest one in this video. I was like, I want to see one of these. I want to actually see it. And it was available, luckily. Actually, first I did the translation wrong, and so I watched another movie for like 20 minutes, and I was like, I don't think this is the movie that they showed clips from. But I found *Blood and Black Lace*. And it's great, but I only watched the first half of it because I started watching it like at 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'd already watched 20 minutes of that other movie, which wasn't nearly as good. But I also never went back and finished *Blood and Black Lace*, even though I do own it and could finish it. So I guess, you know, it's not an amazing movie, but it's a very interesting stylistic film. And I do like this new trend of revisiting it with current movies. I think it's great. Oh, by the way, if you want to see that video on YouTube about Giallo movies where I first saw those clips, I've put a link down below because I think you'll appreciate these movies more, both *Malignant* and *Last Night in Soho*, if you understand the genre they're referencing. Now, nothing will ever top the brilliant absurdity of *Malignant*, but stylistically, *Last Night in Soho* is actually an even better homage to Giallo Italian horror movies. Now, I've seen some criticism on this note of the objectification of Anya Taylor Joy and Thomasin McKenzie's characters, but that's the entire point of the movie. That's what Giallo Italian horror is all about. And I thought it was very well done. And I can tell you that as a female viewer, I found both female characters and the actresses playing them extremely likable and relatable. I thought it was incredibly well done. The film does offer a commentary on how women find themselves, let's say, drawn into sex work. Again, I don't want to give anything away. Yet to have that conversation without any women of color in the discussion is, in my opinion, a bit problematic. I mean, I know it's supposed to take place in the 60s, but I'm tired of whitewashing history. I find it a little frustrating. But *Last Night in Soho* does feature Michael Iaho in a rather large supporting role. So while I think we can excuse, not forgive, but excuse Edgar Wright for his omission, I'm not going to make the same mistake in my discussion about his film and the topic. I really feel that he should have had some, representation in there in that regard, because I think it makes it not ring true. And I guess in that regard, you can talk a little bit about the male gaze, and maybe there is some objectification going on that's not, that's a whole nother conversation. So, it could have been fixed if he just, done that. But anyway, speaking of depicting women from their point of view, the film does an excellent job showing microaggressions against women. I thought that was fascinating in a way that's so good and so real. It's amazing that it came from the mind of Edgar Wright. He's the director and co-writer of this movie, although he did co-write the script with Krysty Wilson-Cairns, but still, he really got it right. Any woman watching this movie will be blown away, for instance, by the taxi cab conversation. It's like, That's just like right from every woman's life. It was amazing. It was really, really well done. The subtlety of it, but yet how aggressive it is. All right, so commentary aside, how was the film from an entertainment perspective? Pretty good. All right, so first off, what a soundtrack. I actually bought the soundtrack. I loved it so much, but there were two songs that I wanted in particular. Anya Taylor Joy's a cappella Downtown. That was the one, they've been using that to promote the movie, and rightfully so. Often in movies and television shows, you'll have a character go to audition, right? And in the context of the story, it's built up and everyone's like, oh, wait till you see this person audition. And then they do, and you're like, oh, everyone in the movie's like, oh, you're so talented, oh, it's amazing. And I often have been watching these movies and shows and been like, I don't think the audition was that good, quite frankly. But, they set up these really high expectations, and it's hard to meet them until now. Anya Taylor Joy's performance here is so incredible. I was like, she should be a star, and I think Anya Taylor Joy is on her way. But it made her story all the more sad that she's genuinely talented. I was like, wow. I mean, we all already knew that she was a great actress, in real life, but it turns out she's also an incredible singer. She's just fantastic. Big Anya Taylor Joy fan, as I know many of you are as well. And then the second song that I really loved in the movie is Puppet on a String by Sandie Shaw. I have in fact been listening to that quite a bit, even more so than Downtown, Anya Taylor Joy's Downtown, the past couple of days since I saw the movie. This number reminded me a lot of Cabaret, in both that I found it mesmerizing in both the clever production number. I was like, it's like done like in a burlesque kind of club. And I was like, that's a really good number. It was excellent. But there's actually, this is a very sexy movie, but I actually believe there isn't any nudity in it, which is impressive. I think that's one of the things that makes it, I think, very likable to women watching the movie. I think it's interesting now that I think about it that Edgar Wright was able to tell the story without that element. So great number, such a great number. But also, like Cabaret, there is a very dark commentary going along with it. I thought it was amazing. I loved it. It's like seared in my brain, that production number. I really want to see it again. And further proof that this song is amazing is that it's actually the 1967 Eurovision winner. I can't believe it. I found that out while I was Googling the song, being like, is Sandie Shaw the person who originally performed it, or is that the actress in the movie who apparently is lip syncing? It's Sandie Shaw, and I loved Eurovision. That was a surprisingly good movie. So I was like, oh, how cool! I love how it all ties together. So amazing song, loved it, loved it, loved it. And yes, Last Night in Soho is an appropriate Halloween movie. It's a good movie for the holiday, and of course, it's coming out for this weekend. They hope that you go see it for Halloween. But I wouldn't describe it as like a scary movie. I would say, like most Giallo films, it's more disturbing, beautiful and disturbing, which is a really cool combination, it turns out. Just like in the Giallo movies, it's just really gorgeous. It's great. The production design is very, very strong. Woo! But as for the directing, this is also very interesting. You would never guess this was an Edgar Wright movie. It's not at all funny, it's not quirky, and that's a really interesting debate. Is it worth successfully pulling off this film if in the process he loses his creative identity, right? I mean, you would not only never again guess this was an Edgar Wright movie, but you would actually not be particularly interested, I think, in who directed this, because there isn't a strong personality behind the camera in that regard. Like, there's no strong camera work. I don't think, in my opinion, maybe because I guess on some hand I knew, but Edgar Wright didn't come into my mind at all when I was watching this movie. I wasn't like, oh, look at that camera move. Who directed this? Or he's really in control of the story. I mean, because again, I didn't think the camera work was particularly impressive. What makes this movie shine is the production design, the costume design, which is also amazing. Her character is a fashion student. That was really fantastic. And then the singing, the music. The music is a big part of this film. And the acting. Let's talk about the cast. What a cast. Anya Taylor Joy, hot off of The Queen's Gambit, turns in another great performance. And what's interesting about her is that, Tyra Banks I don't know if you guys are America's Next Top Model fans, but Tyra Banks made many good points on that show, actually. But one that I want to bring up here is that Tyra Banks said the reason that most models can't transition to acting is that models are trained to be hyper self-aware of their physicality because they have to pose, they have to sometimes do distorted poses to make for an interesting composition, and they can't lose that to have the natural quality that an actor needs to have. Fascinating. That Tyra, she's smart, good businesswoman. But Anya Taylor Joy, who started out as a model, is the rare exception of one who can act, can be very natural, but retains her awareness of her physicality so that she can boost her performance stylistically, physically, and also with her eyes. She's smizing like crazy. Tyra's like, A+ all around. She would, in fact, I think maybe be a good Mystique, because Rebecca Romijn, of course, also came from a modeling background, and I think that's why one of the other reasons I think she was a better Mystique than Jennifer Lawrence, you know, with that because of her modeling background. Isn't that interesting? But we already knew Anya Taylor Joy was an amazing performer. And I mean, we were surprised by how good a singer she is here. But acting-wise, the real treat is discovering Thomasin McKenzie as a lead. Because of course, we've seen her before in Jojo Rabbit and Old, where she did very good work. But here, she becomes a leading lady 100%. I was really impressed. And that she can hold her own opposite Anya Taylor Joy is amazing. I mean, that says a lot. Her baby doll voice, complete with Disney-esque British accent. She has a very good, like, Disney princess kind of look. Don't be surprised if in the near future she becomes another Disney live-action princess. She's great. She comes across with her voice as thoughtful and intelligent, yet still sultry. I think she's a great mix. And she's a very likable actress, perfect for the lead here. And I think a lot of women watching this movie will relate to her in particular. I certainly did. I thought she was really, really likable. I wouldn't be surprised if a major franchise, Disney live action or someone else, snaps her up pretty quick after this. It's an amazing performance. Matt Smith, of course, speaking of franchises, he's in a ton of them. You know, Doctor Who, The Crown, now the upcoming Game of Thrones. But for some reason, he's never really broken out. But he's always he's an amazing actor, and he's always a plus for any production he's in, and this is no exception. And the late Diana Rigg, always as good as well, speaking of Game of Thrones. And this is her final film role. This is the last movie she made before she passed away. Snove Carlson also deserves a shout out for being almost too good as a mean girl at Mackenzie's Fashion Institute. Damn, she was unlikable, but that was the point of her character, so she did a great job. So even though I did not love the ending, I still would recommend this movie, and I would particularly recommend it for every woman out there who is about to go to college or live on her own. I think that it's really, really good, and that it's really amazing what it covers. It's impressive. I just didn't like the ending. All right, so that's my review of Last Night in Soho, hitting theaters exclusively this Friday. And then at some point, you can purchase it digitally, and then at some point after that, you'll be able to stream it at no extra cost. And I'm curious, at what point do you see yourself watching Last Night in Soho? In theaters, on PVOD, or on SVOD, which is subscription video on demand? You gotta know the lingo. All right, share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.